Hello, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Yep, it's Tuesday once again, and that can only mean that it's time for Ask Rob and Rob. So wherever you are, whether you're on your way to work, whether you're at the gym, good on you if you are, but wherever you are, you can turn this into an opportunity to learn something new about property, courtesy of some excellent questions from other listeners just like you. So this whole podcast relies on having people asking questions that force us to explore areas of property that we wouldn't otherwise cover. So we're very, very grateful to everyone who does so. We've got 2 such questions today that I'm really looking forward to getting into. But just before we do, Rob, let people know how they can ask a question of their own.
Well, you have 2 options. You can go to thepropertyhub.net/podcast, click on the link, very easy to do, and leave your recording that way. Or if you have one of those mobile phone thingies, you can get it out and call 013 808 000 35. Simples. But I tell you what, this first question isn't simple, but it is good. So look forward to answering this one from Nadia.
Hello, Rob and Rob. This is Nadia from Bristol. I'm a newbie investor inspired by your podcast. Thank you so much. The information that you give really, really has been helpful in getting me to pull my thumb out. I've been speaking to a mortgage broker who has given me some information that I hadn't anticipated. I have an unencumbered house that I live in at the moment and a lot of equity in it. And I didn't realize how I could use that as a deposit against buying property. So a whole new world of possibilities has opened up. And I'm really hoping you can give me a little bit of strategic advice. I'm just wondering whether if I have a lot of equity and I can potentially purchase a number of properties all in one go right at the start, given that I would like to be in the market as soon as possible and for as long as possible, but I do have a 10-year horizon for the planning that I've been doing, is it better to purchase all the properties that I was hoping to be able to purchase for my portfolio straight away and therefore be in the market for as long as possible, which is good from that point of view, but from another point of view, risk magnifying all the mistakes that I'm going to make several times over, which I know I'll make them, we all do, by not drip feeding into the property market and purchasing them all at once, but thereby obviously risking missing out on some of the growth that I'm after. I just wonder if you've got a view on that, whether that's a short answer or you could do a podcast on it, or it's to Ask Rob and Rob. I would just love to hear your views on that. That would be fantastic. Again, very grateful for all of the inspiration you provided. It's great. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. So in a nutshell, with the ability to buy multiple properties, which is a great situation to be in, do you go all in? Do you go for it and buy them all straight away for more time in the market? Or do you go more gradually and learn your lessons as you go? It's a really tough one. There's a lot to be said, of course, for getting that money invested. If it's not making you a return and you can invest it to get a return and get that rent coming in, and also mean that if the market goes up, you'll participate in that growth, then yeah, of course, you want to pile that money in. And there is an argument for doing so. And I don't think it would necessarily be wrong to do so. However, I think my opinion on this would probably be to go a little bit more slowly. So if an opportunity comes up to buy multiple units at once and get a really great discount by doing so, then maybe that changes the picture. But otherwise, my take on it would probably be take it a little bit more slowly. As you quite rightly say, you will learn lessons as you go along. And the first time you go through the purchase process, it'll be a little bit daunting. And you'll make mistakes and things won't go quite as you planned. And then when you go through it through the second or third time, you won't make those same mistakes again. You'll always make some kind of mistakes. We still do. But the key is not to make the same mistake twice. So I'm not saying absolutely drag it out. I'm not even saying that necessarily you have to wait for the property to be occupied for a few months before you start even looking for the next one. But I'm just saying don't feel like you have to rush in just because you can. Because often when people go wrong in property, and it does happen, it's often the people who try to go too fast, too quickly, and they end up doing some things that they perhaps shouldn't do and getting themselves into trouble. But it is an interesting question because there's no clear-cut answer. And Rob, we haven't talked about this before, so I wonder what you think.
It's not often that we disagree, Rob. But boringly, it's not one of those occasions. I'm sorry.
You tease.
I agree. I think a balance is what's needed here. It's going to depend on your goals and the outcomes you want and the amount of funds you're going to use in the first place. So there are going to be a few variables here. But some general advice is, I'd do maybe 1 or 2 in the first 6 months, see how it goes, test the water, get a feel for it, and then take stock again and go, okay, well, how did that pace feel? What did I learn? Look at it, reassess, take stock, and then make plans for maybe the next 12 months because you've learned. I would take that approach. I would take small steps in the beginning, learn a bit, and then if it feels right, then maybe get a bit more aggressive. But if it doesn't, carry on at the same pace. But if you go all in at the beginning, it's either going to feel great and awesome and you're going to make fantastic decisions, or the complete opposite. So it's probably not going to be much in between. It's going to either feel great, the process of setting it all up, and it's going to run smoothly, or it's going to be a nightmare. You're probably not going to get much in between. I'm not going to say your investments are going to be terrible, not at all. But the process of getting them set up and have you chosen the best investments, maybe not. So, completely agree with what Rob said. Start slowly, maybe reassess after 6 months. What have you learned? And then go again. Right, we're going to go again because we've got another question. And this time it's from Tony.
Hi, Rob and Rob. This is Tony in London. Thanks for the podcast and all your free resources. My question is, do you only invest in nice places? If a place is a bit of a dump, but the property has kind of the right fundamentals, it's in a good location in that city, and it's close to transport links, maybe it's got schools, do you go for it?
So, Tony, you got cut off there at the end, but we wanted to include it because I think it's a good question. And it's actually to pick on you a little bit. Well, from me anyway. Rob might be kinder. But maybe it was just the choice of words you used. But you started off saying would we only invest in nice places and not an area that's a dump? But that place that you class as a dump has really good fundamentals, all the infrastructure, shops, investments, all the rest of it. To me, the two don't match. Now, you may have a personal opinion of whether an area is a dump, but other people, if it's got all those fundamentals and the rental market's strong, then clearly a lot of people don't consider it a dump because if they can live there, they can live in other places. So you've got to be careful of how much emotion you put into it or how much belief of your own belief system you use on a certain area. For me, I often think dump areas lack fundamentals. I'm not going to name them just so we don't alienate parts of our audience, but I can think of certain towns that are run down, need money spending on them, aren't getting money spent on them, jobs aren't that high, the investment isn't coming, transport links are okay, but really there's not a lot to sing or dance about. That means that area hasn't got fundamentals. So really the two clash for me, Tony. If it's got all the fundamentals, I find it hard to believe it's a dump. Maybe it's not the nicest area in the country, but it's nice enough that people want to live there.
Well, just to make things interesting, I'm going to try and muster up a little bit of disagreement. And just to make things even more interesting, I'm going to name a place and offend people because I've done it before. It was quite fun. I got some interesting emails, so let's do it again.
You're braver than me, Rob.
Okay, well, again, it all comes down to definitions and opinions, but I can think of certain areas that have got fundamentals that are a bit of a dump. So, for example, here we go. I own a property in Tottenham. Now, if you're born and bred in Tottenham, I'm sorry, but it's not the greatest. But it does have all the fundamentals in terms of transport links, in terms of local shops. It's got a lot going for it in paper, but it's just not the most pleasing place to spend some time. Again, that comes down to personal opinion. But what you can say is, in my experience, places that have got fundamentals but aren't the greatest often improve because people decide, well, okay, this isn't the greatest place in the world, but it does have a lot going for it, so I'm going to go there anyway. And that gradually drives things up, raises the area, and encourages investment in. So to take the example of Tottenham again, there's now loads and loads and loads of money going in. Now, by the time they finished, I don't think it's going to be Paris, but it's going to be a lot better. So I think if you do find somewhere that's got the fundamentals, but it's not the world's most astonishing area, you could see that as a good thing because there's a potential for the area to improve. What I would say is definitely avoid areas that don't have the fundamentals because, yes, you could get lucky and loads of investment could happen out of the blue, but the chances are a lot slimmer than in cases like we've just talked about.
Rob, I can't believe if you're going to attack an area, go for a small one. I'm going to defend Tottenham and say it's not that bad. And I've been to places a lot worse. Please keep listening to the podcast. But at least you offered, for once, a slight disagreement, Rob, especially as we're so congruent in our first answer. So there you go, Tony. One had a bit of a dig at you. One defended you. And one absolutely alienated a huge part of London. Thanks, Rob. But
on next week's show, why the Midlands is rubbish.
No! Right, before we lose any more people, we are going to go. We'll be back next week on Thursday and the week after, if you've got any listeners, on Tuesday, where we promise not to offend any more areas. But until then, thanks everyone, and we love Tottenham. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.